You're listening to How to 20 Something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off, and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20 Something. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20 Something, where today's guest episode is a little different than ones I've had in the past. I've brought on Aaron here to reflect on his path through his 20s and all of the different identity pieces that very easily could have kept him in a box, but didn't. And when I say identity, I mean a combination of experiences, labels, characteristics, beliefs, just a whole bunch of stuff used to define you. And you can either define yourself or let other people define you. The good news is your identity is adaptable. So if you don't like who you are identifying as, then you get to change that. I'm going to let Aaron here share his experiences with breaking his own identity barriers and help you see how you can do so for yourself so you don't feel trapped in a box you probably accidentally put yourself in. But first, I'm going to introduce him to the show so you guys know a bit more of his background. Aaron Gordon is a second-generation family business principal at Gordon Companies, which has been providing independent trusted insurance services for over 55 years. He has been responsible for the transition and modernization of Gordon Companies, which has more than doubled the firm's revenue. During his tenure, Gordon Companies was also named 2019 Agency of the Year by NU Property and Casualty Magazine and Property Casualty 360. Aaron received his bachelor's degree from the Cy Sims School of Business and is a licensed property casualty broker in New York and over 40 states across the U.S. In 2018, Aaron received the CAPI, which is a Certified Advisor Personal Insurance designation through the Wharton School and Chubb. And in 2020, he received the CCIC, which is Cyber Cope Insurance Certification designation through the Carnegie Mellon and Chubb. He is one of only 5 insurance advisors worldwide with these 2 designations. Hi, Aaron, and welcome to How to 20 Something.
Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here to relax. As I said, I'm used to being on the other side of the podcast microphone, so it's a thrill to be here. And what I will say, just to open, is hearing those accolades or hearing the bio, which seems ridiculous, make me appear, I shouldn't say but might make me appear as identifying as an egotistical maniac. But I will do my best not to. I will do my best to buck that and disprove anything that bio may appear to be like.
Hey, I think bios are designed to be able to let you toot your own horn and brag about yourself. So definitely doesn't come across that way. You come across as a professional. But I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we connected so well when I was a guest on your podcast, Keep Hustling. And I'm excited to hear your story about how you've broken your identity barriers. So kind of want you to just start off with that and have you go through and talk about the different ways you've done so, the different ways you've broken down your identity to what it is today.
So thank you for having me. And one of the things, it's funny, but it's not funny at the same time, is I've been vying for my own identity since 4 minutes after I was born. So I had 4 minutes of my own identity, and then my identical twin was born just behind me. I tried to kick him in the face, but it didn't work out very well. And what's interesting about that is that we very often feel that we want to have a unique identity. And a joke I tell people is, and it's true, the number one question I get when people meet me and my brother, they say, do you ever wake up in the morning and think that you're the other one? Which is like absolutely ridiculous. But what the basis of the question is, how do you view your own identity? How do you view your identity as an individual? And it's interesting because we grew up our entire lives as being, one half of the twins. Our older brother was stuck being the older brother of delinquent twins. And what I'll tell you that's super interesting about that point, and it's also led me to places professionally, is that my twin brother and I, his name is Dano, Dano and I were together basically school, camp, everything, no identity, no individual identity, one would say, until the summer after ninth grade. And the summer after ninth grade, we went on 2 different summer programs. And it was the first time in my life, not that we always had the same friends, but when you're in the same school and when you're in the same camp, you arrive the first day and people kind of say, hey, you guys are twins. And then we could gravitate toward different people. But that was the uniquely identifying feature about us. And that summer, I met people who had no idea that I was a twin. Now, obviously, it's something that comes up, and other mutual friends were there, and there were things like that. But we had discussed this afterwards, and it was something we were teenagers, and our parents were very aware of this, that it was very difficult. It is very difficult to have an instant conversation starter. The guy, like people, when you're an identical twin, you're not a freak, but it's like when you walk into a room, everyone's like, oh my God, those people look exactly the same. Do they sound the same? Do you think each other's same thoughts? All that stuff. So people inherently gravitate towards you. And now when you're in a new social environment and you don't have that icebreaker that's built in, it's very disconcerting. Now, what I will say is, and just to make a huge fast forward, and then obviously we can dig into it deeper, when I came into my role professionally and I decided to join my family business, the business that my father, who should be rest in peace, started 40 plus years before I got to the firm. My mother was there for 30 years before I got there. It was another, I don't want to say identity crisis, but another opportunity or time that I had to figure out my identity, because I was the son, and am very proud to be the son of Goldie and David Gruder. Not that I wouldn't want to be that. But when you're trying to be a professional, trying to create your own brand and trying to build your own business, and you have to do that. And so for me, I think I had the skills a little bit, because I had been fighting the identity thing since birth, and I had been forced to define my identity since birth. Whereas many people just, they are who they are, and there's no comparing or contrasting to others. So that was a long answer to a short question, but.
Well, yeah, and we're going to break down both of those things, primarily being a twin and then stepping into your family business. And that's why I wanted you to come on the show and talk about identity, because you have those two very crucial components. And yes, those are obvious to yourself. They're obvious to people on the outside of that is part of what shapes you. And it's hard to break those barriers. But we're going to go even further and break it down into how a 20-something listening is putting themselves in a box and identifying themselves as a certain way. And that if you were able to do it, being a twin and working within your family business, it's like you're paving the way if anyone could do it. Because those are two very difficult ways to be able to step into your own being and do your own things and think your own thoughts, and not constantly being compared to someone else or living up to someone else's standards or having those expectations, just like anything that is involved in being a twin and or stepping into your family business that was already kind of paid for you and you got to take over and then make your own. And on that note, I want to start off with that comparison, because everyone and their mother compares. We compare, we despair, we do everything. We compare ourselves to other people, we compare ourselves to our siblings, and then even more so if you have a twin. So I want to start with that part. How have you been able to separate yourself from your twin and become Aaron as the individual?
Well, first of all, I don't think I'll ever be Aaron the individual. And I don't mean that, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think there's a few things. First of all, I hate to sound super Gary Vee here, but like, if you're in your 20-somethings, and this is really why I wanted to go on this podcast, because I am almost 40. If you're in your 20-somethings, like you have the whole world is ahead of you. And if you're starting in a career, your career is still very early. I've been in the business that I'm in for 20 years. So obviously, like, it's a little bit more of a mature brand, my brand in the business. But I think that people lose sight of the fact, as you say, that the brand, that your identity can evolve. But I think at the same time, hiding from the things that identify you the best and trying to run from those is also a dangerous exercise. And what I mean to say is I can never be Aaron who's not the identical twin. It's physically impossible. And I hope that, I was here 4 minutes before him, so I hope that I'm here. I hope that he's here after me, so I don't have to experience the loneliness of not having a twin brother. But comparing is hard. We I think my brother would agree. We fueled it into competition. I mean, God, when I beat him in high school basketball, he went to a different high school than I did when we beat him in that basketball tournament, 10th grade preseason basketball tournament. It was incredible. It was the most incredible feeling, more than winning a championship. Maybe the championship was more, but it was like me and him. Forget about, by the way, that it's a team sport and everyone else is more. The team is more important, and our team might have been better than this. It didn't matter. Like that car ride was the ultimate victory, the car ride home. But it's like, I think that we use the comparisons. First of all, it's really funny being an identical twin, but also when you're creating your identity is the sum of many, many parts. And I think it's important for a person. There are some parts that we don't want to continue of our parents' legacy, of our grandparents. As a parent, I only hope that my children take the positive traits and the positive things that I can give them. And I'm not perfect, and I hope that they're more perfect than I am because they've seen my flaws and improve on those. So I think it's the same thing with creating an identity. It's realizing what's around you, leveraging the fact that I'm a twin. I mean, there is nothing greater, even when you meet someone new, as having in your back pocket, I'm an identical twin. Like I can instantly destroy any awkward silence at any new meeting. And that was true when I was dating. That's true in a sales pitch. That's true in anything. So when creating an identity, I have two choices, right? I have the choice of saying, I'm going to run from that. I'm going to hide from that. I'm going to not even keep that in the front of my pocket. I'm going to stuff it in a drawer somewhere and lock it away. And if someone knows that I'm a twin, an identical twin, I'm just going to, I'll shrug it off, or I'm going to lean into it. And I feel that the people that are most successful that I've seen in creating an identity that seems to be wholesome and productive and healthy in the long term are the people who embrace the positives. It's hard to delete the negatives or the challenges, but mute the negatives a little bit and embrace the positives of their natural identity. And I'm blessed, and maybe that's naive of me, maybe that's me being super positive, but I'm blessed to feel that I didn't need to run from it. And by the way, it goes in the reverse also. I mean, it's not great getting blamed for something that you have nothing to do with. Like, I'll just tell you, I don't want to go into all the details of the story but it's just funny. Like, my identity was actually stolen. So like in January of 2020, my identity was actually stolen. And when I discovered that money was actually taken out of my bank account, the first like 2 hours, I was convinced, because we banked at the same branch, that my brother took out the money and they just mixed us up. Like that, it was a hilarious thing. And the bank's like, no, that's impossible. Then we found the whole scheme and someone was impersonating me and whatever. And I was like, you know what? It doesn't really faze me because someone's been impersonating me my whole life. But like, it's pretty funny to think like, oh, a bank can mess up my identity, like give someone else my money and not think like, oh, it's a thief right off the bat. So I don't know. People ask me all the time, do you wish you were not a twin? And the answer is no, because I don't know what it's like not to be a twin. I don't know. And it's so, and it doesn't mean that we're not individuals. I have a beard, my brother doesn't. I wear glasses, he doesn't. If you saw him on the street, you'd probably do a double take. And then the second he started talking, you'd be like, oh, that's that guy. That's Aaron Gordon. But it's not. So I think that it's one of the things that I've been blessed to embrace. So I didn't really need to carve my way away from it.
Oh, well, I love that you have the positive spin on it, because I'm not a twin. I know a handful amount of twins, and I feel like they have the competition factor within them, and everyone is always referring to them as the twins, especially more so if they're identical. I think when they're fraternal twins, it's much easier to, at least in my experience, to call them by their names and not by like the twins and so on and so forth. But there's still that individual factor that you have. I mean, you just started to explain it of like, oh, people would know, like they start talking to me that I'm not my brother. I have glasses, he doesn't. I have a beard, he doesn't. Like those things. Are there any other qualities or characteristics that you feel you're able to make your own and that fully describe the essence of who Aaron is?
Well, I mean, I think that, wow, that's a heavy question. I really hope he listens to this. And I hope my mom listens to this too, and my older brother. Everybody should listen to this, but my mom will get a kick out of this. No. I just want to just to close what I was saying before. I think that there are certain things in our lives that we can remove. We can eliminate, someone who grows up in a family that has horrible eating habits. And that's something that we could say, listen, I want to be healthy. I don't want to go through the health struggles or the other struggles that my family went through. So therefore, I'm just going to literally delete that from the DNA of my life. But being an identical twin, you literally, I guess I mentioned, like, I'm not taking a hit out on my brother. So like, I literally can't, and we live, 20 minutes from each other. I mean, what's uniquely Aaron, I like to cook. I'm a great, great cook. And he's fair. He's fine. He's average, but listen, he ran the New York City Marathon and I can eat more donuts than he can. So it's like, but it's not, I'm also, I'm unique in that I'm the only one of my parents' children that went into the family business. So like, I'm the Gordon of Gordon Companies, and he's not that he does incredibly noble and incredible and amazing work. But when you ask, are there things that are uniquely me? Everything about me is unique, except for the fact that I'm an identical twin. Like everything. Like we have different senses of style. Obviously mine is more refined and better and like more buttoned up than his. We have the same mannerisms. We make different jokes. We make a lot of the same jokes. Let me say that. We do make a lot of the same jokes. And I'll tell you something interesting. Like our wives are different, which is funny. And so it's like, I think you inadvertently hit on something. And that is that very often people think that there is something that identifies them 100% or 90% or 99%. And that's their defining feature. And therefore that usurps everything else and drowns everything else out. And although it's not something that I know not to be true, meaning it's not something that I have ever lived without, I think it's insignificant at this point in my life. Like I'm 38 years old. I'm almost 38 years old. I'm blessed to have 5 beautiful children, a wife, an amazing, incredible wife. I work in a business. I live in a different community than my brothers. Like the identical twin thing is overrated as a strong identifying factor. It's there and it's never not going to be there. But like, dude, you are my identical twin brother. Like, so that's fun.
Okay, I want to jump into the family business side of things then, because you mentioned that you're the only one of your siblings to step into this business. How have you been able to establish yourself outside of the work you're doing? I think a lot of times 20-somethings are fresh into the working world, and I know I fell victim to this, is you identify as your career. And here you are stepping into your family business. It's also your career. It has your name literally on it. So how have you worked to establish yourself outside of it, including your podcast, including networking, and just how you express yourself when you're not doing the actual work behind a desk?
I agree with you 100%. And I think that people overrate the fact that and it's unfortunate, and you're right, and it can be very daunting, and their entire existence becomes their career. But I do want to say that I think that one thing that is lost with 20-somethings, that maybe my generation had a little better, and I just love saying that because that makes me feel like old and wise, and I feel like my parents, but is that your career is a very, very big part of that. And therefore, doing something that you don't believe in or can't stand by or are not happy doing. And that doesn't mean that every single morning you get up and you say, wow, I am so happy. I mean, listen, you have a podcast, I have a podcast. There are some times when I have a podcast scheduled, and no offense to the guest, that has nothing to do with the guest. It's the last thing I want to be doing is having a bright camera shine in my face and interviewing someone. But you have to do it, right? I mean, that's why it's called work. But that doesn't mean that it should negatively define you. But I think that it has to be something that, again, building on the foundation of what we're discussing here, it's an important part of your life. And because it's an important part of your life, you have to believe in what you're doing. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is that every person, I believe, can make a decent living doing something that they're proud of. And that doesn't mean that the person will be a billionaire, right? Because if you chase the money, it may not be something that you enjoy or are proud of. And I think that a person can enjoy most days as much as they would enjoy anything else. Meaning, I am sure that there are times that you have a family get-together or a wedding or something you have to go to, which really is fun, but you're just like not feeling well, or you just rather be in bed. So work can also be that, your profession can also be that, and you have to just get up and say, this is part of being a mature person. But every person has the right to find something that they're passionate about. And my parents were very good about this, and we could touch on that as well. But when I came into the business, I knew that Gordon Companies was first. I knew that the name on the front was far more important than the name on the back. It happened to be, the joke that I say is Gordon happened to be both. But in sports, the team name is on the front and the personal name is on the back. And for me, the name on the front always has to be more important than the name on the back. But the name on the front, to just carry the analogy forward, is the sum of all the names on the back. So a company or a firm is only as good as the sum of its parts. And I was lucky that I got to be a very large part of that because the names were were the same on the front and on the back. And I'll speak to the 20-somethings here. If a person finds something that they enjoy and that they're passionate about, finds a firm that they think is moral and ethical and they can get behind in that field. In the beginning, you got to be a foot soldier because you got to learn. But any good employer should allow you to have your individual identity within that. So I am the NY Risk Advisor, and I work at Gordon Companies. Arguably, over time, the NY Risk Advisor persona has overtaken, for me, the fact that I'm at Gordon Companies, but they're linked. The NY Risk Advisor, this sounds really weird that I'm actually saying it this way, but like the NY Risk Advisor represents Gordon Companies. But when I started, I had to commit to my family and to my parents that I was going to keep to their brand and to what they've built. Now, that doesn't mean that I couldn't be an individual, but it means that there are certain things that are set in stone. I love it. I mean, I have some stories of people literally telling me that they would or wouldn't do things for me or with me because I was my father's son. Rarely happens with my mother because my father, he should rest in peace, was just in this business for so long and built such a reputation. Personally, he and I used to joke it was far more fun when people were mean to me because I was his son. You probably appreciate this less. I'm from New York. I thrive on that. I thrive on the fact you hate me for no reason, just because I'm from New York or just because I have to be my father's son. And my father was a legend. People, to this day, he's gone almost 2 years. Their lives were changed by him. So it's just funny. Those kind of things are funny. But I came into a business that I knew the other benefit that I had, if I'm actually thinking about it, and I appreciate you for taking me through this therapy session, is that I knew that I was coming into something good, but I knew that I was coming into something that was really old school. And so I was lucky, and I am lucky in the fact that it wasn't hard to be the new school kid. Of course, you're going to say that we have to do e-signatures, a very small example. And my parents and I would fight about this. Is it legal? Does it meet with the insurance regulatory requirements? All this jazz like that. But it was a layup. It was of course, you're going to come in and come up with these ideas. And for the first 5 years, we will tell you they're stupid. And then for the next 5 years, we'll listen to you. For the next 10 years, we'll listen to you. But it was those kind of things. I was lucky that the business was just ripe to be changed. But there are certain things that that are so inherent in me. When there's a big storm, the office phones are going to be forwarded to myself forever. And when I was a kid, when we didn't have voicemail, the office phones were forwarded to my parents' house. I love that. My wife doesn't appreciate it sometimes, but that's what I would say. So I don't know if I answered the question right.
Well, I don't know if you answered it either, but you did say some very key things that I fully stand behind. And that is that you spend a majority of your life working. That's just kind of what it is. And if you don't agree with the company you are representing, then you need to step away. And I think that plays in part. A couple weeks ago released an episode with branding. And I think it just loops that right back in of how important your own personal brand is. So having that identity of yourself and your brand and how you feel you best represent yourself is so crucial to finding a company that you align with. Because while I don't think you should fully identify as your company, I do agree that it is a large part of who you are. And I think it helps define who you are outside of the work you do in terms of if you're happy, you're going to be happy elsewhere. Your relationships are going to thrive. You're going to be healthier. I've given these examples on other episodes too. And the same thing holds true for if you're miserable. And if you don't like what you're showing up to day in and day out, you don't like your boss, you don't like the rooms you're stepping into, you don't like the work you're doing, and how that translates all into you when you're not even at work anymore, when you've stepped away from the desk. So I think those are just some really important components to keep in mind, because the other part that you had said is being passionate. It is very possible for every single person to be passionate about the work they're doing. And that's something I teach with my clients, and I help them around. If they're not if they come to me for their career and they're not happy, we get to explore what other options they could start to take, what other avenues, so that they are happy, so that they are passionate about the work they're doing. They do enjoy it. They do believe in it. Like all those components that, again, loop back to your identity and who you are when you're not at work.
Right. And I think, and I would say, like, I'm definitely not advocating for 20 somethings to go run around and quit on the third day of a bunch of different companies. But what I am saying is that if a person is in a position where they're not happy, you can find alternatives. And by researching them, one of the beautiful things about the internet, which there's a lot of negative, but one of the positive things is that, especially company culture, it's a thing. And it could be that for you, it's, I know this is not you, but I'm just saying, it could be that like for you, it's everybody's going to sit behind desks and we're all going to pound away at the keys, and everyone eats lunch at their desk. And that's what motivates me, because there's zero distractions. And I love that. And then hard stop 5 o'clock. I never need to think about work. I can go out and enjoy my time with my friends, and I can do it all again the next 9 o'clock the next day. That might work for somebody. And the other person might say, I like the culture where people are talking to each other and it's fluid, and work people also get together on the weekends. And I wouldn't care if I was at the museum and I ran into a colleague, because I don't bifurcate the two. And company, that's something that's easy to find. Sometimes companies can be deceiving, but it's easy to find. And some people are into big corporate structure and some people are not. And a person has the right to discover that. So what I like to tell people is I think you have at least 2 bullets in the chamber. I don't think you have a full, 500 machine gun rounds. But I think that if a person takes the time at their first place of employment and really is introspective and finds, let's say, their second place of employment that they're really passionate about, because the first one is not, for X, Y, and Z legitimate reasons, our parents and grandparents won't say, oh my God, you guys are terrible and you switch jobs every 6 months.
Yeah, I think another way to think about it is, one, your job is temporary. And I can say that because I have talked to so many people since the start of this year who have been laid off unexpectedly. And I experienced that myself when I was 7.5 months into working. So when it comes to your identity, when it comes to if you are someone that falls into that trap of identifying as your workplace, as your company, as your career, if you took that away, if your job went away tomorrow, who are you? Because that's something that I got messed up. When I lost my job unexpectedly, I felt I had no more purpose, no more reason to get out of bed, no more reason to wake up. Like, there is nothing for me to do, because I developed so much of my identity and my purpose and my life to a company that I didn't even like working at. I was on interviews prior to being furloughed. Like, I didn't even want to work there anymore. I didn't enjoy that place. But here I was, fully giving my entire soul to this company. And that's what I really try to steer other 20-somethings away from, because at the end of the day, like, if you're able to keep a roof above your head and you're getting your paycheck, like, your job is not that serious. Unless you're a doctor or a lawyer or doing something life-changing, a therapist, whatever, like that realm, it's not that serious.
Well, and I think also, like, your example is a great example, because had you had the insight that you have now, you would have said, obviously I can't quit because I need the money, because I need to pay my rent, because I need to keep a roof over my head. But this is not my identity, and I know where I want my identity to be, and that's therefore where I'm interviewing. And so that doesn't mean, by the way, a person doesn't go try to get fired and boom, and let's get furloughed and fired. But I think that it just means that you also realize that sometimes that takes time. And like with everything in life, as long as a person realizes the journey that they're on, I think that they can really see the benefit. And that doesn't mean that today I'm going to be in my dream position. I still need to pay my bills. I still need to be a responsible, mature adult. But I mean, gosh, your listeners are 20 somethings. Like, I hate to bring all the classic examples. Like, imagine Jeff Bezos when he was 20. Like, imagine if you could see a picture and a movie of Jeff Bezos when he was 26, or Elon Musk, or whatever. Bill Gates, the most charitable, the people who have given the most charity in the history of mankind. 20 years old, the guy was a college dropout with a dream.
Well, you said it. You said it a couple minutes ago, like earlier in this episode, that you're in your 20s. You have so much life ahead of you. You can continue to redefine yourself. Continue to pick a different career path. Like it's going to take some time to explore who you are, because up until this point, it was kind of mapped out for you. Your parents told you who you were and where you needed to be. Your coaches, your teachers, your mentors, like everyone kind of molded you from childhood onwards. And then you enter the real world and you're not living with your parents anymore. And now you're working and you're trying to make friends. You're trying to develop hobbies and you're trying to make a name for yourself within your life, not within social media or being famous. I mean, if that's what you want, great. But you are at a point in your life where you do get to start to discover who you are. And that comes with curiosity, that comes with some play, that comes with hobbies, it comes with doing things that aren't just what you do for a living.
Well, I'll say two things there. First of all, someone told me something very interesting, and this is why the fact that I'm staring right down the barrel of 40 scares me. And that is that if a person just takes round numbers, until you're 40, more than 50% of your life was basically defined and decided by others. So if you realize that, you say, let's just use the round numbers. At 40 years and one day, the day after your 40th birthday, that's when you can say that you've molded more of yourself than someone else and than other people. And by that doesn't mean you want to delete them. But what I'm saying is, for someone to say who's 23 years old and say, I love when they say this, my life is over. And again, I sound like an old man, but it's like the first 14, 15, 16 years of your life, you couldn't leave your house without someone else's permission. You're like 6 years past that. And I'm not talking about when big tragedy happens. I'm just saying like the average thing. The other thing that I would say is some people who have that drive, who want their profession to be their identity, who want their work to, if a person does enough self-reflection and analysis and decides that then that's what they want, who am I won't say you, to tell them that they're wrong. Like if that's your way and you enjoy it, and when you solve that huge work mystery at 2:00 in the morning when your eyes are burning, like that gives you the same rush as I get when I get to play football with my kids, go for it. But that's what it has to be, meaning with the right introspection, with the right thought, and not just, I think that unfortunately right now there's so many easy excuses as to woe is me and why am I not chasing my dream? Like you said, how did I build my identity? I started a podcast. I started the Keep Hustling podcast. Why? I have no idea. I can give you the whole, but it was something I wanted to do. It was something I was passionate about. It wasn't going to bankrupt me. Like it was not expensive, and I had the means, and I mapped it all out, and I've mapped it all out. And it was something that I could be passionate about. And I thought about it, and then I did it. Like, is it going to be some life-altering thing? Maybe one day. But right now it's something that I enjoy doing. It doesn't hurt anybody else. And it helps mold my identity. Maybe I'll look back and say, that was a huge waste of time, but I learned X, Y, or Z. So I feel like that there's so much opportunity to mold the identity and your identity, and there's so little that's set in stone. Not to get, political or religious or philosophical, but like it would be a shame for people to take the easy way out and say that they were just stuck for no reason. There are some people who, unfortunately, life circumstances, they're stuck. But I think you would say from your experience personally and professionally, 90+% of the people you meet can change their lives for the better.
Yeah, I agree. I have two things that I mentioned this on a podcast I was on months ago. And it was when someone was talking to me about my career and my identity to my career. Because as I've already mentioned on this episode and past episodes, is I fully identified with that first job. It's like, that's what my purpose was. That's who I was. And then I broke that barrier when I was unemployed and realized that there was so much more depth to me and I had much more to live for and much more interests and just layers to me, that now being self-employed, having my own business, it is my identity again. Like the work I do is who I am. I am a life coach. I work with 20 somethings. Like that is me to my core. So it goes in a circle, but the difference being is right now, I fully identify as a coach. It's my business. No one can ever take that away from me. So maybe you, if you're listening, like you have a title that is yours. It's not something that your boss gave you. It's not something that is your email signature. It is something that you have given yourself because you've done that work, you've done that self-reflection, that no one can take it from you. No one can take your power from you unless you let them. If you give it to them, that's different. But having that reflection of this is mine. This is mine whether I am working for someone else. This is mine whether I'm working for myself. This is mine when I'm out on a run. This is my title. This is who I am. I think that's a big part of realizing where you're giving your power to, and that's what molds into your identity. And again, all of it is moldable. You can change that if you don't like what you're coming to realize right now through our conversation. You have the power to change your mind. The other part I want to say, and then I'll let you talk, is within those layers, something that I say constantly when I meet someone new and they ask me about myself and like what I do and who I am, I'll say like, I have a lot of hats, and one by one I'll like take off a hat. I'm like, here's my other hat. I have a life coaching hat. I have a nutrition coaching hat. I have a podcasting hat. I have a personal training hat. I have an interior designer hat. Like I've got lots of hats, lots of different parts of me. And I think that's phenomenal. And I think a lot of people, if that's what you want for yourself, not in that literal sense of taking all the hats I have, but developing your own layers and what other things that you have to offer to this world and to your life, to the people around you, is going to help you break that barrier down.
100%. I will just say one thing, and I love listening to your story, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the confidence with which you speak and your ability to juggle the various hats might not have been possible without the initial work experience.
Oh, 100%.
What I mean to say is that a person, what I think we're both trying to get is a person doesn't long-term have to be in a situation that they don't love or not passionate about. But it's also kind of part of growing up. It's like kind of having bad life experiences. Like the world isn't just a candy store. You know, like, oh, no, by the way, same thing with nutrition. Like, yeah, I would love to eat candy all the time, but I can't. Like, and that's, so there's so many life events. Like the movie has so many different scenes. And I think it should be our goal to get to, at the end of the day, the most robust scene that we can. And by the way, there are those things that you can change and those things that you can't change. You know, bringing the episode full circle, you know, being an identical twin, I can't change that. So I have two choices. I can either resent it, and I'm blessed, by the way, that I love my brother, right? Imagine if like I never wanted to speak to him again, but I speak to him every day. But it's like, you know, embrace it, put it in your toolbox, and add something else. And by the way, one of the greatest ways to eliminate the power or the force with which the negativity or the negative things or difficult things that happen in your life, best way to combat that is to have a lot of positive things. Like the best way to, even if you're in, and I would say this to all the 20 somethings, like if you're in a job or in a career that you know is just a stepping stone and you have other dreams, like your weekend should be even more incredible. Like you have so much time. Like your weekends, your nights, don't watch Netflix, hang out with your friends, enjoy. I'm not even saying a financially driven side hustle, but find a side hustle, find a hobby, lean into that, because you can mute out the difficulty with, you know, you don't feel a little rock and a bunch of pillows. So like, you know, just do that. And then over time, you'll see there's more and more positivity, but there's always gonna be bad stuff. I mean, listen, I lost my dad. I was 35 years old. Like my father, my mentor, my best friend, my idol, everything. And I literally just, I was holding his hand when he passed away. Like that sucks, but it's life. It doesn't mean that I'm fully past it or I think I ever will be, but it's like, I look at his grandchildren, my children. I look at my siblings' children. I look at the life that he built. I look at my mother, who's incredible. I look at supporting her, and I look at the business that every single day I get to. I view that as an immense pride, an immense opportunity, an immense, just incredible chance at continuing a legacy. But I can honestly say that when my father passed away, he was proud of me. And, not to get too emotional down that road, but like those positive things make difficult times and make things that don't. And again, we fought in business. We didn't always agree. I didn't always love being the guy who had to actually read the documents and do busy work when everyone else was on the phone and he was running around and going out to fancy lunches and to Knick games. Like, I didn't like that. But I don't even remember those times. Like what I'm getting at is like your first job. If it hasn't already, it will very soon like become the least significant part of your journey, even though it's very significant. And what I mean is it's very significant as the first, but like there'll be 10,000 pages not about that and 5 pages about that. Even though that's an important one, even though that's chapter 1 in your professional journey. So you can't get to chapter 2. Nobody can read the book and skip over chapter 1. It's like totally insignificant at a certain point. Even the negative parts, even the impact it had on you negatively.
Yeah. A book that I read, a friend gave it to me when I was freshly unemployed in 2020, was The Alchemist. And I liked that book because it wasn't an in-your-face self-help book, but the story behind it is you have to go through the rough parts of life to come out on top. And life is going to constantly be a climbing battle. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to suck all the time, but there's definitely going to be those moments that rock you, but they're going to push you forward and take you in a direction that you otherwise would not have taken had that not happened. And I consider my shitty first job and losing my job and being depressed, like all those things, that is my origin story. Like that is the start of my success story. And you're right, like it is chapter 1. I've accomplished so much in the last 5 years from that moment that happened in my life, a very pivotal moment, that there are other pages. There are other chapters that have happened since then. But that is such a crucial part of it that would not have brought me to where I am today had it not happened.
100%. Also, by the way, and this is something that I speak about on my podcast all the time, every other person has had those moments. It might have been at their second job, not their first job. It might have been at the end. It might have been the person who retired because they thought that they had a great career and they gave themselves all the company and they loved it. It was their identity. And then the company got sold and nobody cared about them. Like maybe for the 20-somethings out there that are listening, that are struggling or that are thinking about this or that are confused, like maybe you're lucky because you're doing it at 23 and not at 53. Like have your midlife crisis before your midlife and life is great. So
I was talking with a client a couple of weeks ago, and it came up that he was at rock bottom, and he's 20. And I was like, no, you're lucky. You're at rock bottom when you're 20. That means you just get to go up from here. Like some people wait. They don't reach their rock bottom until way later in life. You are ahead of the game. And yeah, it sucks, but we're working together. We're going to figure this out. We're going to get you out of this pit that you have found yourself in so that you never have to return to it again. At least not in the same exact way or in the same energy kind of way.
100%. I love that.
I want to ask you another question. And it's, we've talked about like that feeling of stuckness where you don't know what you're doing with your life or you don't know who you are. And so what advice would you give someone who feels stuck in a version of themselves that they feel no longer fits who they are? So maybe like they've carried on these titles, these expectations that have been pushed onto them, and they don't want that anymore, but they feel stuck with how to move forward.
Well, first advice is keep hustling with a hashtag in front of it. But, and what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, I think that someone who feels that is already ahead of the game. Because so many people don't realize where they are in a difficult position. But there's no such thing as stuck. You just have to find the other angle and never stop searching. Always keep hustling. There is an angle. And by the way, the angle is not becoming a billionaire. The angle is not out of your reach. There always is an angle. And if you haven't found it, that's because you haven't found it. And I didn't say that's because you're not looking hard enough. I didn't say that. But it's because you just haven't found it yet. And there's always an angle. There's always a way out. And sometimes, by the way, sometimes the way out, there was this, I have no idea why this just came to my mind. I think it was called 127 Hours, but I could be wrong. There was this great documentary done that got actually turned to a film about a guy who was hiking, I think in California, but I could be wrong. And basically he fell into like the worst possible spot where nobody could hear him, nobody could see him. And he lived, I think it was 127 hours, but I could be wrong. No food, no water, hanging. And he ends up basically cutting off his own arm to save his life. And the human condition is such that he was, able to get through the blood, get there, like literally do this. And basically once he got to a person, he collapsed and almost died because, the adrenaline was carrying him. But like, there's always an angle. As long as we're breathing, as long as we're kicking, as long as our minds are sound, our bodies can do it. There's always a way out. There's always another way. That could be a side hustle. That could be working nights and weekends. That could be taking some time off. That could be picking up golf. I was in a difficult place in my life and I became the best possible addict of the Peloton. I was like, this is it. This is what I got to do right now. And this is what's keeping, giving me that mental and physical burst. So I would tell people, reach out to me. We could talk through it. Reach out to Jess, but like, there's always a way. We just have to find it. And by the way, the one that you think it is, or I think it is, or whoever, speak to the 20-somethings, it might not be right, but that might lead you to the one that is right. And as long as you have sound mind and we literally I sound like a broken record, like you just keep hustling, you just keep doing it. All, putting medical conditions aside, emotional, psychological, physical, human strength is so much greater than anyone can ever think. Anyone can ever imagine. Like ever. So that's what I would say.
My last question for you is, if you could go back and give your 20-something-year-old self a message, any message, what would it be?
It's going to work out. Do well by doing good. This too shall pass. Same thing. It's all the same. It's going to work out. And most importantly, the things you think are a big deal are not.
Facts. And that is how we're going to wrap up this episode. So thank you, Aaron, for coming on and being a guest on How to 20-something. Where can people find you if they want to follow your journey or listen to your podcast?
NY Risk Advisor on all platforms. And I always use the hashtag Keep Hustling Podcast, Keep Hustling Shop. But reach out to me, NY Risk Advisor, on any of the platforms, and I will get back to you.
And I was a guest on Aaron's podcast. Our episode has not aired yet. I don't think.
It's airing. I don't know when this is going to air, but it's airing this Thursday.
Okay. It is airing in February, and this comes out in March. So you go check out my episode and then start to work your way back up to the most recent ones or explore some more episodes that he has in there. But you guys know that no matter what, his information will be linked in the show notes for you to access immediately, right this instant. Otherwise, this does conclude another episode of How to 20-something. If you liked what you heard, you learned something new, if you know someone who needs to give this episode a listen, then please share it, post it on social media, give me a 5-star rating, just do something that helps me expand my outreach. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.